all join me in welcoming Renato Scaff, CIO of Accenture, to the stage.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I guess it's my opportunity to do my high-tech check-in, and I'm Renato Scaff. I'm actually the COO of North America, not the CIO, so the roles got confused there. And sou brasileiro, com muito orgulho, muito amor. And that was for my Argentine friends in the audience, because I know they're so happy these days, that we got to bring them down a little bit. We got to bring them down. Remember, 5 versus 3. Math is simple. Math is simple. It was interesting also watching the check-ins yesterday and observing something, that's truly unique to this familia, which is there's not really any other cultures that I could start thinking about across the globe that have the pride of who they are and where they come from, but also as a group have a pride. Like, you don't think of somebody from England, somebody from France, somebody from Germany saying, we're so proud that we're Europeans. They don't have that energy like we do, right? And I love that video to start this because there's a lot of energy in that video, right? It just gets you excited about what we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna take the next 25, 30 minutes talking about the metaverse. And I'll try to bring it to life. I'm gonna show you a few other videos because I think it's much more fun to show versus just tell and make it real, like when you have your experience and you put on your headset and you go into the metaverse. And I recognize that, some of you might be thinking, well, just the metaverse is like last year's hype. This year's hype is Gen AI. That's the really cool thing that we want to talk about. And we got to spend the whole day talking about Gen AI. The cool thing is they're not independent. They really come together as one, and they reinforce each other, and they create the ability for us to truly reinvent and transform. Gradually, then suddenly. Famous words by Ernest Hemingway in his book, The Sun Also Rises. And it was the answer to a simple question: how'd you go bankrupt? Gradually, and then suddenly. And you think about the evolution of what we've been going through with the metaverse. It's been evolution, and then it's going to be revolution. All these piece parts have been building together, and they're going to come to the point now as they converge to become truly revolution. So when we think about the metaverse at Accenture, we think about it as a continuum. We think of it in a much bigger, broader way than just the headset that people might put on there. We think of it as a canvas for creative, right? It's an incredible place for content, for companies like Heineken to interact with their consumers, to bring their brand, to bring the experience, to bring music, content, experiences to life. It's a center for community, unlike anything we've ever seen. And you'll see examples that I'll bring to life from what we've done at Accenture with the metaverse, of just a place for people to gather and interact with each other from all over the planet. It's also an incredible engine for commerce that really takes commerce to the next level when you add into it kind of ownership and you add into it tokenization, et cetera. But it's been an evolution that we've been on for a while, right? When you think back to the evolution of the internet, you think back to the 90s, and it was the internet of data, right? That was where humanity got started on this journey. We figured out a way to put all this content, all this data into one place, and smart companies like Yahoo and Google figured out a way to make it easy to go find it. It's so second nature today, but it started there in the 90s. Then in the 2000s, we got into the internet of people. And that's when, MySpace, we've forgotten that name, right? But Facebook and others started coming to life in a way for people to connect socially. And God only knew what things would come from that besides just connection, right? Revolutions and inspiring people to stand up in ways no one had ever imagined before. The 2010s was all about the Internet of Things. Everything got smart. Your wearable, your car, your refrigerator, your TV, the truck coming to your house, the boat crossing the ocean. Everything was connected and perpetually sending out data to the cloud for us to be able to kind of analyze and make new decisions with all that data. And as we get now, and you're hearing kind of the Web3 and where we're going, it really becomes about the internet of place, where you can actually have a place that you go to and it's persistent, right? Unlike when you go to a website, the next time you come back, it starts the same way. You can go into the metaverse, you can create something, you can change it, you can leave and come back, and the changes you made to it persist. Radically different than what's been before. And the internet of ownership, right? With distributed ledger technology and tokenization, the ability to own your identity, your currency, your digital objects radically changes things. So we're really on this precipice of where we're going. And again, as I mentioned, at Accenture, we think about the metaverse really as a continuum. We don't think of it only in the VR part that people think of it sometimes, right? We think about all the piece parts that come together, from the consumer side of it to the enterprise, from reality to virtual and back in an integrated way, from 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, and back seamlessly, right? There's multiple ways to think about this overall continuum and the piece parts of how it comes together. And that's what's really exciting, right? And that's where it really connects the dots when you think of all the building blocks that many of you here in this room have been building, have been investing in, have been experimenting with, right? When you look across, and this is why you can't talk about, well, Metaverse was last year's hype and Gen AI is this year's hype. They're all together, they're all connected. You think about extended reality, the distributed ledger technology, you think about digital twin, right? And Gen AI, right? Like yesterday, we spent a while talking about Gen AI, and again, we could have spent the whole day. And we all got, we all found out and learned all about it together in November, December, as everybody started playing with ChatGPT. And how do you interact with ChatGPT? Do you go on a prompt? Do you ask a question? You maybe frame it however which way you want to frame it, and it gives you back an answer. As a quick aside, as I was watching the presentation yesterday, I said, write a 500-word presentation about the metaverse to a group of technology executives. It was brilliant what it came up with. I then thought of my 5-year-old son. I said, well, write it for a 5-year-old. And it was amazing how it changed it, because it talked about magic and learning and exploration and playgrounds and toys. Totally different. I then said, okay, well, tell me 500 words to tell it to a group of Latino technology. And then it wrote it in Spanish, which is pretty interesting to say. But my point of this is, we're just early stages. I was writing prompts, and I was getting back a paragraph or a few paragraphs. Now imagine I'm in the metaverse, fully VR immersed experience. Now I'm interacting with an avatar that could be a human, someplace else on the planet, or could be an AI. It's not a chat agent, it's an avatar. And I use my language just like I'm using now. I converse with it, no different than I've been conversing with many of you over the last 2 days. And I have a conversation, and it knows what I'm saying, it remembers the things I've said. That's where you can start seeing the light bulb moment of, wow, I can see how these things really start coming together and what it unlocks. Because it unlocks just possibilities that none of us have dreamed of yet, right? Think about it, you're not typing, it'll sound archaic to type in a not too distant future, because it'll be all about a full, normal conversation with an AI. You think it's an AI, you think it's a human, who knows? It might blur when you're also an avatar in a virtual reality space. And when you think about it, you can see very quickly that it's just a massive transformation opportunity, and it'll really leave no stone unturned. Right? Like, think about it, and you think about some of the use cases you see here in the video. Customer experience, obvious. Lots of different ways, and lots of companies like Nike and others are already experimenting with it, and you can go in, and I'll show a few examples in a minute. You think about the products themselves and how the products are made. Digital twins, the ability to kind of create a digital twin of the product, a digital twin of the factory, so you can see it. Think about supply chain. It's an incredible use case. A quick story on that one. My role before becoming the North America COO, I used to run a supply chain practice for North America. And I was doing an interview, and they asked me, what's the role of the metaverse for supply chain? And my way too quick answer, without putting enough thought to it, clearly was, well, I don't really think there's a role, right? Like, supply chain's like physical things, you're moving boxes. Like, what does this digital virtual reality world have to do with a physical thing like a supply chain? And then I actually started giving it some thought and spent a few minutes kind of processing it, and I could start seeing all the opportunities and all the use cases. one of which we then went and built out. We thought about creating a control tower for supply chain, because we were in the middle of the pandemic. What was everybody screaming about? Supply chains, right? My Christmas gift's not going to show up. I need to make sure I can find it. And every company all of a sudden was screaming for visibility and transparency because they didn't have it. They didn't know who their tier 2, tier 3 suppliers were. Were they impacted by some COVID outbreak? Were they impacted by the war in the Ukraine? They didn't know where their products were, and they were just flying blind. And the first thing they wanted is they wanted visibility. And we said, well, what if we gave them visibility in a metaverse environment? What if we brought people in, and instead of somebody from a factory in China and somebody from a port, Long Beach, somebody from a distribution center, somebody from retail is sending lots of emails to each other and getting on phone calls and figuring out how to solve a problem from a disruption happened? What if we brought everybody virtually together, showed them the same data, immersed them in the same content, and let them make the decisions right there in real time? So we built that. It was actually fun. The team built something that looked like a outer space. You're in a space station orbiting the Earth, and you're looking down the Earth, and there was an AI built in it that the AI would tell the people, if here's a problem, here's some options of how you can solve for it. By the way, solve for it not only from a revenue cost, but I'll solve it from a sustainability, because there's different answers, whether you're putting something on a plane or you're putting it on a boat, right? There's different implications. And we've taken many, many clients through this experience. And it was interesting, when we take clients through it, and we actually have people playing the roles. Like, they go in there and they interact, and they're talking to somebody who says, I'm from the factory, somebody says, I'm from the port. And they always ask me, and multiple times I've been asked, like, those people are really just like in the room next door, right? They're not someplace else. I'm like, no. This person is in Singapore. This person is in Bangalore. This person is in France. But right now, they're all here, and we're all looking at the same information, and we're all making decisions. And it just kind of blew their minds in terms of making it real. So it was a really cool way to bring some of these examples to life and start challenging people to think differently about it. Now, these use cases vary by industry, and I won't drain this, and you probably can't even read it or see it, but it's just showing whether we're talking about experiences based on service, by product, kind of digital twins, how different industries are looking at this from a study that we did recently. But instead of just talking more, I want to bring a few of these to life. So I'm going to bring 3 examples to life through videos, because I can't bring 500 VR headsets to put everybody in right now. Might take a little bit too long, but I can show you a few videos that give you a little bit of the flavor of it. The first one is Accenture's own. And again, necessity is the mother of all invention. So during the pandemic, when we couldn't get our people together, we couldn't get our clients together, we immediately started thinking, well, what do we do? And we were seeing the emergence of the metaverse, and we thought of it as a way to onboard our employees. We've hired hundreds of thousands of people during the pandemic. We've sent several hundreds of thousands of Oculus VR headsets to those people that they started their training when they first joined in their house, putting on a headset and being immersed in the metaverse. Same thing with our clients, right? What we love to do is bring our clients to our locations, to our innovation centers, take them out to delivery centers in India or other parts of the planet, and we couldn't do that. Well, we went and digitized those locations, truly digitized them, like our San Francisco office here in Salesforce Tower. We digitized that, created a digital version of it in the metaverse, and we can have meetings there. We can have a meeting in our location in India or an innovation center, and so we would just send a headset to our clients and hold the meeting in an immersive way there, and it was a great way to kind of get us together when we couldn't be together. So I'll play a quick video to bring it to life here.
Welcome everyone to the nth floor.
Well, Paul, I love that you brought us to the cafe. This is beautiful.
Hey, do you guys want a group photo?
So this is the Sophia Antipolis lab. This is the next generation bank.
Over here on the are there?
Welcome to Accenture Virtual Reality. This is Accenture bringing forth the power of human ingenuity and technology.
We've got over 30 locations or centers of excellence across the globe.
Welcome to our Talent Town Hall.
We're standing in Accenture's Metaverse right now. We call our Metaverse the Nth Floor.
Welcome you all to the launch of the RMD Code program.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
And we've done that for ourselves. We've done that for our other clients, and that's what we've been working on, and there's lots of these. So another one that I'll bring to life is what we've done with Changi Airport in Singapore. And for those of you that have flown through Singapore, have flown into Changi, it is a whole different level of an airport. It is absolutely the coolest, most amazing place. They pride themselves on being the best airport on the planet. And they wanted to create a metaverse version of it to continue that positioning of there is no better airport on the planet than what we have here in Singapore with Changi Airport. So they hired us to work with them, build the metaverse, and it was really cool because we built, and you'll see a video of it as well, emulated some of the exact spaces they have in the airport. For example, you can drive a go-kart in the airport. So if you have a layover, why not go rent a go-kart and drive it at the airport? But to make it fun in the metaverse, and you can do this now, this was launched a couple of months ago, you can drive the go-kart. The fastest driver on this racetrack in their metaverse go-kart wins free 2 tickets to anywhere that Singapore Airlines flies. And if you live in Singapore, it's 2 round-trip tickets to leave Singapore. And if you don't, it's 2 round-trip tickets, obviously, to go to Singapore, which is one of the many ways they're using it to bring it to life. So let me just play this one here as well. It's interesting. I actually saw videos on TikTok of people doing this jump. I don't know what that means, but in Changi Airport in reality and in virtual, and there's videos starting to pop up, so it's becoming something social, which is interesting in terms of people creating TikTok videos. The next one that I'll show here is the ocean race, and this is actually happening right now. So there's the ocean race, which for those of you that are into sailing, is a race that goes around the world. It's existed since 1973, and it goes literally like 35,000 miles over the course of 6 months. It started in January from Spain. It'll end in July in Italy, and it literally, they just finished their 4th leg, which was from Brazil to the US. So the boats literally just showed up. 2 of them showed up overnight into the US, and a couple more are still on their way. There's 5 of them. And they wanted to engage more fans into this race. So we partnered with them, and they asked us to build a metaverse so you can actually experience what it's like to be in these sailboats going through these incredible conditions. I mean, imagine you're crossing not an ocean, you're crossing all of them, right? Insane to imagine. They teamed up with Virtual Regatta, which is an online game that you can play if you're into sailing. There's digital sailing. I didn't really know that existed, but apparently it does. And we did a partnership between them, and we built this new metaverse, and you'll see a video to bring it to life. And what's cool, again, to bring things and make them real, like the ability to drive commerce out of it, one of their partners is Helly Hansen, right, that you can get not only sailing gear, skiing gear, et cetera. And so you can be in their metaverse, and obviously you can buy their products while you're into it. You can see I like all videos that have some sort of high energy, because I clearly picked out the ones that hopefully get the heart pumping, but I figured this was a very safe place to bring high energy to. Hopefully that starts giving you a little bit of a flavor of what our clients and how we're interacting and how we're ideating and bringing up new ideas to bring it to life. It's incredible, right? I talked about the piece parts to create it, but then when you start thinking of the companies that create the piece parts to put it together, you get this incredible picture that every day is changing. And you think about the companies that build the infrastructure and hardware. You think about the companies that put together the 3D technologies, the human-machine interface, the immersive application and the worlds that you create, the blockchains, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is an amazing time, and it's exploding in terms of what you see. Now, what's important for us, just like we talked about yesterday in terms of Gen AI, is there's absolutely a very important element about responsible metaverse, right? And you can think of it in two dimensions. On one hand, you have the trust dimension, and on the other hand, you have the human dimension. When you think about trust, right, it's the things that we know about. Privacy, resilience, well, it's scale, right? Security, intellectual property rights, just like when we talk about Gen AI, whose property is it? Same thing in the metaverse, right? The ability to kind of leverage it and create content. Where's that content coming from? Security, I don't think we know yet what all the implications are. We can't, because as people start interacting in the metaverse with Gen AI and avatars, God only knows, right? You have a conversation. Where did that data go? Was that a security violation? What vulnerabilities did we create? So there's a lot of thinking. As we experiment, we have to be careful and we have to be responsible. Same thing when you think about the human dimension, right? Safety. You can't spend 8 hours in a VR headset. You can spend maybe an hour and you take it off, and you need a little bit of time to decompress and kind of come back to reality to keep functioning in a 3D world, but in front of a 2D screen. Your eyes can't adjust to it, so there's a health aspect to it. There's a sustainability element. When you think about all the data centers needed to power all this technology, where's the energy? Is it sustainable, renewable energy, or is it carbon-based, and what does that drive, right? Well-being, kind of, and obviously kind of the inclusion, equity, accessibility, right? The same way we talked about Gen AI yesterday from a ethnicity perspective, the same thing happens. When I told you earlier about what we built in terms of supply chain control tower, when the team was building it and the platform they chose, at first they said, look, there's just one avatar you can use, and everybody's gonna be the same avatar. And I'm like, well, that's not acceptable. If I'm a person of color, I want somebody that resembles me as my avatar. I don't want to be a white guy. It's one sex. Like, what if I'm a male? What if I'm a female? Like, that doesn't work. You have to create it in a way that it resembles who you are, and therefore, there are elements of inclusivity that have to be thought about as you build this out. And then, to wrap this up, and I'll open up for a couple of minutes for any questions the group might have. It's tremendous opportunity, right? And we've done a little bit of research and a few different data points and triangulated. When you think about the potential, right? 2021, $180 billion marketplace business, right? By 2024, we think it'll be $800 billion. By 2030, Citi predicts $13 trillion from the metaverse economy and the pieces that come underneath it. Now, I've validated, because I want to be sure, I'm like, when we talk about all the pieces, we're talking about AI. Are we talking about Gen AI in there? And the answer is no. That doesn't even really apply all the Gen AI potential in terms of the economy you create. For sure, these numbers are wrong. It won't be what it's going to be, right? Guaranteed. And in 6 months, we'll be talking about different numbers. The one thing you can take away from this, it's going to be massive, right? I don't think there's any way to challenge that. It's going to be dramatically more than we have today. It's going to grow exponentially, and it's a fantastic opportunity for all of us, both as humans, right, as consumers, as patients, as employees. It's a dramatic opportunity. So with that, I think I got a couple of minutes here, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them here before we wrap up. And I'm now understanding everybody else has been up here that you really can't see what's going on in the room, so.
Hello, I'm Juliana Kaiser from ENY Mellon. And my question to you is, do you think that we're heading towards a cashless society? And if that is the case, what are the implications, good or bad?
So we're getting as a what society?
Cashless, no cash.
Cashless, oh, cashless. We're evolving, right? When you start thinking about crypto, et cetera, there's no question the ability to go towards cashless is the journey that we're on. There's lots of pitfalls, as we've seen so far with what's happened with crypto, et cetera, and companies. So there's a lot of pieces that have to be thought about. But it's hard, again, to argue against the benefit and ease of everything being cashless. And sometimes you think, well, that's really just first world countries and third world countries, it doesn't work. Well, guess what? Everybody's got this now, regardless of what country you're in. And in most places, regardless of where you're traveling, you can pay with any sort of digital payment, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, whatever, pick your favorite app. And there's many of them by different countries. So I think we're going that way. The question is, well, how long? How long does it take for us to get there? There's also lots of implications about all the different currencies that exist across the world, right? When will digital currency be big enough that it starts really impacting what's happening in our traditional currencies and everything else? There's no question there's so many things that are at stake in the current model that there's going to be lots of people protecting the current model and slowing down the path to it, but I would think it's going to keep growing.
Hello. If you are a small company, like a startup, and you want access to the metaverse, what are the tools available? So like when I reach Accenture, for example, I want to build a house, I want to build a building, I want to create new content. How, as a small company, you can bridge that and just be part of the new economy where you're in the metaverse?
Yeah, there's lots of different tools, and I won't get into specific ones, but to build a basic metaverse, isn't an enormously expensive thing. So even small companies absolutely can participate in it and iterate in it. So it's a matter of starting that. The interesting thing, like digitizing a physical place, you can digitize it with video. So you images of a location, and then it's automatically digitized. It's not like somebody is sitting there with a CAD software and building a replica of the place. There's technologies with video, et cetera, that you can translate this physical space into a digital space. So it's actually probably less expensive than you think. There's a lot of people that are developing and building out capabilities, and I wouldn't be surprised, just like you can go to different, crowdsourced platforms to hire people to help you build whatever new app as a startup. I'm sure there are people that you can go find that are designers, that are people that work in different metaverse platforms to build it. The one thing I'll tell you from my own experience is you got to do a little bit of homework before you pick the platform, because there's certainly limitations on different ones that you go down, and it's changing so fast. Whether you're using Roblox, which is what Changi used, or others, you got to really understand it a little bit beforehand. I'll switch to that side, but I wasn't sure if you were next or you were next. Okay.
I'll go fast. Walter Ferrero, Morgan Stanley. We had a very interesting conversation during lunch saying that the next step in virtual reality is going to be about the interface. Right? When you look at Player One, a lot of the movies, Free Guy, WALL-E, you get to a point where people, to your earlier point, almost want to just live in the metaverse or virtually. Very hard question. What do you think the next interface is going to be? How do you see us 10 years from now interacting with that space, versus obviously just the headsets and such?
For us, from an Accenture perspective, we're very much viewing it as across multiple ways to interact, right? So no different than today, that I can interact with the internet with my phone, with my watch, on my screen, on my TV, wherever. We believe it's going to be the same thing, right? So there'll be different fit-for-purpose situations. Yes, there's times where I want to be immersed. No, there's times that I don't want to, and you can see it, right? We've partnered quite a bit with Microsoft and Meta, obviously, in the space. And there's capabilities being built out that I can interact in the metaverse through a 2D screen on my computer, where I'm not going to get tired and exhausted. I'll lose some of the functionality, right? With a headset, you and I could be in this room and we could be talking just to us, as opposed to in a 2D space, we got to wait turns to talk. But I think it'll be a number, right? I don't think it'll ever be, it's going to evolve to one. And God only knows what other ones we're going to dream up right? If we say 10 years out, am I going to be talking to some glass that shows it as a way to immerse? Is it going to, are the walls in my room? And this is where it gets exciting because you start thinking of movies like Minority Report, everything, that the room changes and you're immersed in it without putting, without putting a VR headset. So it's as wild as your imagination can take it.
Thank you.
All right, I think we got time for one more. Well, the time just went up, so I don't know if that means like they liked the questions or what. Or now the time just went to 0. It went from 1 minute, I was paying attention, then all of a sudden it showed 3 minutes, then it showed 0. So I'm confused. Do we have time for one more? All right, we'll do one more.
I'm saying yes. So I'm a little unique in this group that I'm actually a finance professional supporting a lot of, what everyone does here. And so when I see the presentation, my mind's a little bit blown away and really open, so really enjoyed it. But what I think about is, when I think about our IT organizations today, the cost of business has a lot of strain. We have a lot new requirements in security, cloud, and so we see a lot of the for example, software, right? When I see that revenue number, how does it change the cost of business? And how should our companies be looking at, as the cost of business changes, how should the revenue models also change?
Now, it's a great question. It's a perfect one to wrap up on. It changes both sides of the equation, right? Because it can change your cost equation and it can change the revenue and value you can drive. So again, I gave the example of Accenture not flying people and all the costs associated with getting on a plane to go to a training location, to stay in a hotel, to do everything in person, to then just the cost of a $300 headset that you mail to them. And that dramatically takes costs down. Same thing with our clients, right? So there's obviously a sustainability benefit you can factor into that when you're not traveling and you're meeting virtually. So I do think, again, as people think about the business cases, as the metaverse evolves from just like Gen AI, a place to tinker and experiment versus a place to truly build scalable solutions that'll drive value for the enterprise in total, we have to start thinking of business case. We have to start thinking of what's going to justify it. And my belief, there's no question, it's going to be both kind of taking costs down. And that's where I get, again, excited about the marriage of these technologies. So again, you're an IT professional, you got a lot of things that we're now automating and we're putting Gen AI to solve for versus human interaction, and the way you might engage with that through a metaverse, through a VR, through an extended reality versus completely immersive VR might be also ways to facilitate and accelerate the process, right? Back to my supply chain example, the original vision when we first came up with it was, I want to be like the Matrix. I want to fly around to wherever I need to go. There's a problem at the port in China, fly me there. And let me go look at it and let me see a virtual representation of the port where I can physically see where containers are. So you can start then thinking of all the ways we can take cost out and drive value and drive revenue. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed the videos. I appreciate it. Thank you.